Ready, Joanne? Oh, we're live. That's hot. I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 7:02 PM. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Here.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Here.
Councilmember Shockley.
Here.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Here.
President Lima.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. In the event of an emergency, those present in person tonight can exit out either doors 1 or 2 to the back parking lot or front lawn of Town Hall. Moving on to meeting minutes from prior meetings, we have August 8th, 2023 open session, August 8th, 2023 executive session, August 23rd, 2023 open session meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as a block?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc.
Second.
Second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? This is just on voting as a block.
Yeah, so I was actually going to abstain because I wasn't here on the 8th.
Okay,
So I know that messes up the block, but just as a heads up.
okay.
So I can either abstain on all three or
All right, I'll just do August 8th as a block then.
Okay.
Do we have an amendment to the motion? To just do August 8th meeting minutes as a block?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
abstain.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative and 1 abstention.
Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 8th, open and executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley,
I'll second.
second by Vice President LeBlanc. Discussion. I have 2 edits that I didn't get a chance to send to you, Madam Clerk. One is on line 225. It should be would look into it. At the start of that line. The other is on line 273. President Lima asked if the agreement was ever put in writing with this person. And I believe that's it. Did you receive any other corrections?
I did not.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Moving on to the meeting minutes of August 23rd, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilman Pasqua. Discussion. Clerk, did you receive any edits for these?
I did receive 2 from Mr. LeBlanc.
Okay, were they made?
Yes.
Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yeah.
Councilmember Ludwig.
So can we hold on? I'd like to know what the edits were to the 23rd. We went pretty quickly through the vote there.
Sorry, I said discussion and nobody said anything.
I think I also approved the 8th after I said I was going to abstain. I only abstained on the first one, so my bad.
Well, we already voted. That is what it
Yeah.
is. It's not that you can't vote on them. You just,
Yeah,
it's your choice.
Do you know what the edits were? I think
No, I think he's gonna.
It was row 238. After member Ludwig's vote, it was a reckless yes. Was one of them. And Joanne, there was one other one. Do you happen to remember what the other one was? I can't find it in my town emails for some reason.
Thought it was a typo,
Oh,
but.
it was row 203. It should have read additional expense, knowing that the school department is in a structural deficit instead of the town.
What'd you say? What line was that one? Did you have it or no?
It was 203. Said town is in a structural deficit, but my comment was.
Yep. Any further discussion on the August 23rd minutes?
Yes.
Council Ludwig.
If you'd like to add that in, I'd also like the verbatim in from the council president calling the rest of us reckless. And then your personal comments supporting the reckless comments for us looking to vote against you. So I'd like to see if we could maybe table this vote, get the verbatims from the president and the vice president, and then I'd be happy to come back. So I'd like to make a motion to table this for the next time.
We have a motion to table from Councilor Ludwig,
I'll second it.
second from Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? I will share with you remarks I had typed up. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to public acknowledgements and commendations. Letter of recognition for Joanne Amitrano, CMC Coventry Town Clerk. Joanne, can you come forward to the podium? So we were notified of a big professional achievement with our town clerk, Ms. Joanne Amitrano, and we wanted to recognize her this evening. It reads, the Coventry Town Council recognizes Town Clerk Joanne Amitrano for successfully obtaining her certified municipal clerk designation from the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. This certification is a testament to her dedication, hard work, and commitment to serving our community with the highest level of professionalism and expertise. It highlights her determination to continuously improve her skill set and knowledge, which ultimately benefits the efficient functioning of our town's administrative processes. The process to achieve certification is a 3-year program that is held at Plymouth State University in the summer, in which you must attain 60 education credits, along with 50 credits of experience. We are fortunate to have Joanne as an integral part of our administrative team, and her professional development certification reinforces her value, dedication, and commitment to the town of Coventry and its residents and business owners. In testimony whereof, and on behalf of the Honorable Town Council, I've hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town to be affixed this 12th day of September, 2023. Congratulations, Joanne.
Yeah.
Can I just say something quick?
Sure.
I just want to thank Joanne for her part in keeping this town running. Her ability to listen and take note without giving feedback or comment is absolutely amazing. I really credit her with just being calm and kind of a reasonable force in a room sometime, even by just saying nothing. So thank you for everything that you do to kind of keep us chugging along. Appreciate you.
Moving on to public hearings and public comment on docketed items. We'll do public comment on docketed items at this time. Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a public comment on docketed items? Are there any members of the public on Zoom? Please just raise your hand. Public comments on docketed items only at this time. Last call, public comment on docketed items, going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. Matters for public hearing. We have 2 ordinances this evening. Item A, ordinance 2023-2, public hearing of proposed amendments to Town Code Chapter 209, Streets and Sidewalks, adding section 19. Item B, ordinance 2023-3, public hearing of proposed amendments to Town Code 204, solid waste, section 28, storage and collection of residential bulky waste. Do I hear a motion to open public hearing?
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
public hearing is now open. Solicitor Angel, did you just want to give a brief, this is the second reading. I don't know if you wanted to make any brief remarks.
Actually, this is the first reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. This was tabled from our last meeting. So this is the first reading. Withdrawn, I'm sorry.
Both ordinances.
Okay, did you, or,
They've been reworked.
I think this is actually the second one.
It is?
Yeah, you reworked this last month. It was read.
I'm further ahead than I thought.
Yes, you are.
I thought I remember first reading last
Yes.
month, last meeting. Okay,
You're ahead
so
of
this is
schedule.
the second reading. Yeah.
Yes.
So these were on our last agenda, August 23rd. We're here now for our second reading and public hearing. Manager Parrillo, any additional comments at this time? I mean, it's the same as what we looked at last.
Yeah,
month.
these are two ordinances that Director McGee asked for in order to be consistent with how we're going to move forward with our collection and our snow removal and so forth. So I think we're ready to go and looking for the council to approve these.
Thank you. At this time, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on either of these ordinances during public hearing, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Any members of the public on Zoom for a public hearing, please raise your hand. State your name and address for the record. And there you go.
James Pearson, 8 Nicole Lane. Thank you for letting me talk. This is concerning B2, I guess you would call it, of this proposed ordinance language. I'd like to raise two concerns with the wording of this language. First concern is kind of a big one. The way it's currently worded, only Coventry owners, lessees, or occupants of property are subject to this paragraph. And what I mean by that is, say someone from Cranston decided to violate this section by leaving a boat, trailer, recreational vehicle parked in any one of the prohibited areas, they're not subject to any of the enforcement activities the way this is worded. So I would strongly recommend having another go at this before passing it for that reason. The second concern I have is that the way this town is laid out and the parking being at a premium, especially on the eastern end of town, this ordinance, at least this paragraph, related specifically to just the parking, not the abandonment of other types of objects. But for parking, this seems to unfairly target the citizens who reside in the eastern end of town. And you may want to seriously consider that before you vote on this matter. I guess there is a third point. I'm concerned that this paragraph will lead to politically motivated actions where, you know, if you look at history of Rhode Island in recent years, Cranston, there was a ticketing scandal because of not a little more strict of an ordinance, but an ordinance, parking ordinance nonetheless. And in Johnston, a parking ordinance was used to by a council person there to unfairly target a business owner and basically run them out of town. These are concerns, not saying that would happen in Coventry, but that is a risk. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public on Zoom with public comment or public hearing? So, Manager Parrillo, I believe part of the etymology, and I believe test. I believe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the background on that in ordinance, item A 2023-2, item B2, the 48 hours piece, I think we were getting excessive complaints about people having the inability to back out of their own driveways. I know in District 5, we had a concern as well, for people parking large vehicles or work trucks or RVs in the street and people not being able to maneuver on their own street and they were left there. So I know that was part of the etymology around that, if you can speak to that.
Just to, what Mr. Pearson's concern is, I think that's the same language that's in the beginning where it says no owner, lessee, or occupant under A. That's verbiage that already exists. I think we repeated it.
Okay.
So I don't think we changed it or reinvented it. We basically trying to be consistent with what's already in the ordinance and just change the parts that were necessary to make what we're looking to do.
Yeah. Solicitor Angel.
So in
Just ask that we do a 5-minute interacting. Let's just take 5 minutes. Thank you. Gee.
Yeah, good evening. The proposal on 2023-02, the changes have nothing to do with politically motivated by any means. This is something that we need to keep the roadways safe. We've encountered this throughout the neighborhoods, Oak Haven, areas that people are parking RVs there for months at a time, boats, work trucks. We're looking to, if somebody needs to have it there for a temporary basis, they're having a visitor come over and that's fine, but they can't continue to keep it there.
Mm.
It's a hindrance to our sanitation collection. It's a hindrance to safety. And I'm sure the police department deals with it. And then also when we're trying to do street sweeping, and it can't be there, and especially when we're starting to snowplow. We've had some issues where people are depositing things when I say things as it says here, we had to go today to a residential area that had street flooding. We found out that the pipe through the town easement was clogged on the outlet side because people have been dumping their yard waste and clippings. So that,
That's the other ordinance, yeah.
yes, that's, I think it's right here on B2. And then B3, they're pumping water.
Yeah, B1.
Yep, they're pumping water out of their sump pumps, putting it onto the town streets, creates issues, especially in the wintertime, that we have been sending notices out, but we have no teeth in it that we can actually enforce it. Now, this is going to allow us to be able to enforce this. Whether somebody's taking a snow blower and blowing their snow after we've plowed onto this town street, whether they're blowing leaves, grass clippings onto the street, creating a hazard, clogging up the drains. So this is just to keep the road safe and also to make sure our infrastructure remains constant.
I would imagine too, any suspected violators aren't just going to get a fine or a municipal court summon slapped on the windshield. There's going to be
Notice.
a notice to warn first, and then I would imagine some due diligence would be done to verify that something's actually been there longer than 2 days or it's been sitting there for a long time.
That's, and
Yeah,
under C1,
exactly.
it tells you that we give them notice first, and then we go through that process of notification. And if they
I just want to make that clear for the
if they're
public.
non-compliant, then this is where the enforcement takes place.
Yep. While you're up here, did you want to speak to 2023-0-3 as well? If you had any comments?
Yeah, the 2020, what this basically does is allows us to have the pricing as it increases going through solid waste resource recovery, keeps increasing the prices. We can no longer go and collect bulk waste at homeowners' residences without having a fee to be able to associate it with that. Because we talked about this during the budget process. This is the only way we're going to be able to cut down on some of the frivolous calls, and we're getting we get a lot of them. I've got a folding chair that needs to be picked up. So when we go from 25 stops each day, 5 days a week around the calendar, we've tried this, and now it's 2 days picking up, and the calls have reduced substantially. So.
Well, and I started to get calls about the bulk waste change.
Yeah.
And when I explained to them the cost of the town to tip that and deposit that heavy bulk waste, and how much we've had to increase our payment to Rhode Resource Recovery over the last 3 years alone, it kind of clicked for them. They're like, oh, wow, like they had no idea.
And without having this codified into the ordinance, we don't have the enforcement issues that we have. So that's why we're asking for this to be changed also.
Sure. I want to give one last call to Zoom. We had the one comment, or any members of the public here for public hearing on these two ordinances. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public hearing is now closed. Solicitor Angel.
Just final comment. It's not on your copy, council members, but I have given a positive endorsement to both ordinances. I've signed the original.
Councilor Shockley.
I just want to make sure, based on the public comment, that if you look, I believe it was hard to hear, but I believe it was 2023-2, and then it was section B2.
Yes.
I know it was also hard to hear with the static town manager Parrillo. So are there changes that are going to be made to that? Is it just going to say like no person shall park, leave, or abandon any vehicle, or just so we don't, if we can clean up an issue that probably won't, but could happen in the ordinance right now, as opposed to waiting for the issue to happen, with that just a small language change?
You'd have to do it to the section A as well, because all that also says no owner, lessee, or occupant.
But I think that cleans it up. I think that one's a little cleaner because it says no owner, lessee, or occupant of any premises or any person cutting, placing, blowing, or allowing these actions to take place. So that sounds like it includes landscapers to me. But
You can add
if
it.
you wanted to change the language there too, I have no problem
Yeah.
with it. I didn't see the same issue with
Mhm.
number 1 as with number.
No, you can add
two
that.
based
That's
on
no
your-
problem adding that.
What's the process for that? Do we then have to go to another reading after making those changes, or?
Well, without changing section, substantive, it wasn't changed before.
Were you saying section A or are you saying just B?
Uh, I didn't feel there was an issue with A. Those are about cleaning and snow removal
Because all
Um,
of them add the qualifier or any person or any person.
or any person's. Yeah, I think they all qualify, whereas section B, number 2, doesn't have that same qualifier.
Okay. Just to get discussion rolling, do I hear a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-2, an amendment of part 2, chapter 209 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Coventry entitled Streets and Sidewalks?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. Councilmember Shockley.
So I would like to. I'm not sure what I want my motion to be yet. Does everyone agree that if we took out owner, lessee, or occupant of any premises and put no person, that would be sufficient?
Solicitor Angel.
That makes it defective. You can have incorporated and unincorporated entities that own a premises.
But there's a person related to them. So, but I take your legal advice. It was a legal question.
I
'Cause
think you should model it after in item A. You would just do no owner, lessee, occupant, or persons of any premises. I think that might be your motion.
Okay, so for number B2, I make a motion to change it to no owner, lessee, or occupant of any premises or any person shall park, leave, or abandon any vehicle. Do I have to read the rest or?
No.
Okay. And I just want to take a look at number 3 if we're having this conversation. No owner, lessee, or. I mean, I would say make the language consistent throughout. And with number 3, change it as well to no owner, lessee, or occupant of any premises or person.
Just 2 and 3, not 1.
1 already has it.
Oh, I see. Yep. So we have a motion from Councilmember Shockley. Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Second by Vice President LeBlanc. Discussion on the amendments. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we're back to the ordinance as amended. Councilmember Ludwig.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I think this is for Solicitor Angel. This is on 2023-2, so this is on page 32 of my packet, and it's line starting number 50, number 2. So this says, basically, no one can abandon any vehicle, trailer, recreational vehicle, et cetera, for a period in excess of 48 hours on any street, et cetera. So just want to make sure I understand, because some of the issues I've been seeing, at least in my district, I don't know about anybody else. If someone has one of these things and they park this item on one part of the street, and then 47 hours later, they just move it forward 10, 15 feet. Is that still considered the 48-hour period, or is that they've now moved?
No, it certainly violates the spirit of the ordinance. They would be cited. And of course, they would probably come to municipal court and said, hey, I moved it. You know, I have pictures or whatever the case may be. I don't hold out any great hope that they'd be successful in their advocacy.
Okay. And one last question on this exact same part. When we talk about leaving these things or abandoning these things, what if they're not, I don't know if this falls under the park session, but what if they're actively using something like a trailer? Let's say for their business or something, and they keep parking it on the Coventry street. Is that still falling under here because they keep parking this?
The key is the abandonment piece. That's the key in leaving it. They're not using it. It's about the words, right? I mean, what are they using it for? You know, I mean, you have traffic laws, obviously, too, that come into play with respect to parking, no parking, what you can use, spaces for. The intent behind this was to deal with
Abandoned
someone who
item.
just chooses to use that space essentially is either to, abandon a vehicle or leave it there for an extended period of time without the intention of doing anything with it, I
Okay.
suppose.
All right, I understand. Thank you.
Councilor Ludwig, are you okay if I invite Chief Ice up? You look like he was about to comment.
I'm sorry?
You okay if I invite Chief Ice up? It looks
Oh,
like he had a
yeah,
comment.
thank you.
Well, so one thing I just wanted everyone to be aware of, I'm not sure, maybe you are or aren't. In chapter 234, vehicles junked and abandoned, we have a section which addresses this issue as well. So some of it may overlap what this is, just so you're aware.
Director McGee.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a different interpretation is what the solicitor was talking about. If you read in B2, it indicates that occupant of any premises shall park, leave, or abandon. So it also includes if someone parks it there and uses it rather than putting it on private property, it does not belong in the town right away. So if they park it there, they leave it there, or if they abandon it. So it's not just the abandoning, it's also the other ideas. And then we're finding that landscape companies, others are using town streets to park their vehicles rather than putting them in their yard. They don't want to mess up their yards. So put a driveway in your yard, take it off town streets. Thank you.
Councilor Shockley,
But it needs to be 48 hours,
Just-
or less.
like for any of it or less. In excess of,
I'm saying in terms of what they're allowed.
they're allowed up to 48
Yes.
hours. Yep. Okay. So I guess I just want to equate this to an issue, of trying to drive down Wisteria when two different houses are getting landscaping done. That's not abandonment, that's working.
That's correct.
But if someone every night parks their truck in front of their house because it doesn't fit in their driveway, but every morning they go to work.
Not 48 hours.
Okay.
Yep.
But is that a problem we're trying to solve for?
Ultimately, yes.
And this ordinance doesn't seem to solve for it.
We can't tell people that they can't go for less than 48 hours. If they need
Okay.
something because of business or whatever, as long as they're not leaving it there, it becomes an issue.
Oh, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we were thinking out everything we were trying to do. I don't want to overly prescribe where people can park their car, but, or vehicle, but thank you for that explanation.
Further discussion on ordinance number 2023-2. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Do I hear a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-3, an amendment of Part 2, Chapter 204 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Coventry entitled Solid Waste?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion on the ordinance. Comments from the manager or solicitor? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to licenses, item A, annual renewal mobile food establishment license, Casa Tia Rosa LLC, Manuel A. Leander Jr. This is on pages 36 to 37 in your packets. Do I hear a motion to approve the license?
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Council Shockley. Is someone from this business present this evening? On Zoom? Or in person? Manager Parrillo, any comments?
No concern to the license.
Any further discussion on the license application? Or renewal, rather? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to item B, application for new Class F liquor license, St. John and Paul Parish, 341 South Main Street, September 30th, 2023 to 7 PM to 10 PM fundraiser as per Rhode Island General Law 3-7-14. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I think we got an email from the town clerk today.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
Yes, that was withdrawn, I believe. Correct?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
There was an email from Joanne saying that they were withdrawing it, Joanne.
They
Change
had
the date.
a problem with their date. So they wanted to come off the agenda and they're gonna come back when they have a solid date.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to election and or appointment of town officials. Item A, town council appointments, appointments to assessment board of review, 3 openings. We have a Sean Carey seeking reappointment and Kathleen Daniels. This is pages 40 to 42 in your packet. Madam Clerk, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the appointments on the assessment board of review are district based, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Is Sean Carey here this evening? Welcome. Want to just come up to the podium, introduce yourself? Just state your name and address for the record. Welcome. All right. You want to just talk about your interest in serving on the assessment board of review?
Sure. Should be my secretary.
Great. Discussion, questions? Members of the council? All right, thank you very much. Is Kathleen Daniels here this evening? Welcome. Just state your name and address for the record. Welcome. You just want to talk a little bit about your interest in joining the board?
Actually, I retired.
Excellent. Any discussion from members of the council? Thank you very much. What is the council's pleasure at this time for appointments to the assessment board of review? Councilor Ludwig.
I just want to clarify. So this is 3 openings. And we have to do it. Did you say by district before?
Yes, there's one for each district.
So it's just that one of the districts, it's not time to reappoint them here. So
Correct.
These are the only people
Only
who have submitted?
applications. Yep.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Any further discussion? Vice President LeBlanc.
I'll make a motion to approve Sean Carey and Kathleen Daniels to the assessment board of review.
I'll second it.
Motion to appoint from Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion on the appointments? Councilor Ludwig.
Thank you, everyone, for coming in. I know we don't have a lot of questions tonight, But I think you're coming back for a reappointment. And Kathleen, you're in my district. So very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for stepping forward. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
All right. There you go, Carrie. Moving on to B, appointment to Coventry Historic Preservation Commission. One opening seeking reappointment, Maureen Buffy. Is Maureen here this evening? On Zoom? Any discussion from members of the council? Councilor Ludwig.
I've known Maureen for several years. She's done great work on the Historic Commission. And she's actually involved in several other things like historic preservation of the cemeteries and the headstones. So I'll be glad to approve Maureen tonight. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Ludwig, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve Maureen Buffy for the appointment to the Coventry Historic Preservation Commission.
I'll second it.
Motion by Councilor Ludwig, second by Vice President LeBlanc. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Members of the council, I'd like to take a motion to take the agenda out of order. We have some visitors this evening and just want to get them up front if we could.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving to report of town officers and officials, item B, Stephen Angel, Solicitor.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you for taking the agenda out of order. I'd like to call to the council's attention items B and D. First of all, under my report, the first being the ratification of the ground lease agreement between Coventry and WSD Coventry LLC, as well as the ratification of the solar power agreement for the Arnold, also known as the Coventry landfill. I have provided you with final documents on these. You have seen the ground lease before. We went through it. What was signed today by the town manager is a fully integrated document. It was also signed by Mr. Lucini, the principal at WSD. In addition to that, the solar power agreement was finalized between myself and Mr. Savage, counsel for WSD. There are 3 parties to the solar power agreement. And again, it's a fully integrated agreement with the ELUR attached to it, as well as the assurance policy. Everything is in order. There are 3 parties, however, the trust will be signing that, not the interlocal trust, but the trust group for the landfill. So we'll be shipping that off, assuming the council ratifies to those folks for their signature. They'll keep one, we'll get an original, and we'll be returning an original to Mr. Savage on behalf of Mr. Lucini and his group. I didn't know if the council had any questions.
Questions from members of the council on items B or D? I want to thank the solicitor, Mr. Lucini and Mr. Savage, for your work on this and bringing this over the finish line. I can appreciate, I'm learning how to consume legal services, and I can really appreciate the kind of lift that went into this and making sure that it's done right for all parties involved. So especially thank you to Mr. Angel.
I recommend ratification.
All right, so on item B, do I hear a motion to ratify the ground lease agreement between WSD Coventry LLC and the town of Coventry?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President Blank, second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Do I hear a motion to ratify the solar power agreement for the Coventry landfill?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second.
second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Back to you, Solicitor Angel.
Okay, in your packets this evening, you have I'm going to direct your attention to the memorandum, essentially from the Land Trust and Doug McLean, who you'll meet in a few minutes, your new Director of Planning and Development. This memorandum sets forth for you 3 properties that the Land Trust has evaluated, prospecting for purchase. They're requesting that funds be authorized to do the appraisal on these before they go ahead and go much further with this. I've talked it over with Mr. McLean. I've reviewed the papers on this. I think my recommendation would be for the council to authorize the funds for the appraisal on these. Obviously, there is money in that line item in the budget. I would defer to the town manager on that, but I think we visited this discussion a little while ago. And there's 6 figures in that account, if I'm not mistaken, so I don't see that as a problem. So does the council have any questions for me on this?
Discussion from the council. This starts on page 46 and goes, I think, until 60. Councilor Shockley.
So I noticed with all 3 that they all got a 0, or almost positive, in provides open space opportunity in densely populated areas. So while I understand we just want to keep trees and keep rural character, would we prefer places where it gives people an opportunity to utilize the property? Is this property people won't utilize?
I would, through the chair, request that Director McLean come up. He can best speak to that.
You want to come up?
Oh, I think there's someone from the. And no, these are really questions I have about how we want to spend this money for the open space.
Sure. Being 3 months in, I can't claim to know the details. I can say that's one of their criteria. They have many. I do anticipate they see these properties being very valuable and being well used. I think that criteria of densely populated is there because it's an extra boost if there is a property that happens to find itself, for example, in the eastern part of the town, and they think it would be uniquely advantageous or uniquely proximate to a lot of people. But I do think that all the properties that you see in front of you are properties that they see this as being great opportunities for recreation and open space preservation, regardless of their location.
No, my question, I apologize. It wasn't the location. It was that they all got 0s on provides open space opportunities in densely populated areas.
Well, I think
So-
it's all in District 1, which wouldn't be considered.
Oh, so
densely
that's the only
populated.
part it doesn't fulfill.
Correct.
It's not in a densely populated area. It
True.
is open space. Oh, that's not.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, these are open space.
Okay.
Just that question is more about the location.
I
And there's
gotcha.
only a small area of Coventry, I think, that would qualify for densely populated.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that answer. I had read it differently than that. So thank you.
I'm happy to answer any questions. If there are questions, Rory from the Land Trust is here as well. And they know a lot of the details. They certainly put a lot of work into these properties. These properties have been on their radar for months in advance of my arrival. And they're just interested in taking those next steps. So this was the first opportunity to bring this to your attention.
I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate the explanation, and it's not that I have a problem with open space or keeping forestry for the purpose of keeping it. I just was curious if we had different intent.
Yeah.
Director, while we have you up here, do we have a ballpark of the appraisal costs?
Ballpark on an appraisal of these, to be honest, we're probably talking about $1,000 a pop. Would you think that that's a fair guess? Yeah, in and about.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different than an appraisal of a house, but we're not talking about a huge sum of money.
Just wanted to put that out there
Yeah, yeah.
publicly. Councilor Ludwig.
Can we ask the land trust to come up and just tell us a little bit more about the properties themselves?
Sure. Yes. Just coming up, make sure the microphone's on and state your name and address for the record.
Rory Carmody, 4259 Flat River Road, Coventry. They're beautiful properties, and some adjoin other properties that were already protected, including the Audubon property. And it just creates more of those opportunities for families to get out as well. And we are looking at properties on the eastern side as well, the more densely populated areas along the way. And what we're trying to do is encourage, land trust donations and people putting that into their estate planning as well to protect those open spaces for people.
Yes.
We have land trust days coming up October 14th, which is a great opportunity for families to get together to go travel the Whipple property over off Sandy Bottom. It's a great area there, but the wildlife as well as the trees and the other shrubbery there are well established. We have a wonderful biologist on the land trust now, Jenna Odell, who has walked all of the property, can identify all of the flora and fauna there as well as some of the wildlife. And we see all sorts of great things from the eagles, the Cooper's hawk, all sorts of like wildlife that kids and families should really be seeing and experiencing together. The skinny appraisal is usually in that $1,000 range, and we do have 6 figures in our budget for land trust. That doesn't encumber anything from the town. It's monies that are granted to protect these open spaces as well.
Councilor Ludwig, the floor is still yours.
What'd you say?
The floor is still yours.
Thank you. I just was curious because usually, like when someone donates portions of their land or things like that, we don't tend to see residences on them. We see them like break off portions of land. But for example, the one on Town Farm Road that has residence, garage, barns. I was just curious, like, why is this a good candidate for you to go out and do the appraisal on?
When you see some of the diagrams and the pictures there, it protects a lot of the waterways as well. The family wants to keep the house and the barn just intact for themselves. And it's just a way to preserve that, again, that portion of land. I believe the Mendes property do abuts the Audubon property as well. So that just gives us a bigger footprint in that area. You're right, that we tend to try not to buy anything that has houses, anything we have to take away. I think we saw that with the green property, the green camp property, anything you'd have to dig up and remove. Is that kind of an impediment to going forward? But all of these properties have real, I think, important value.
We haven't seen many of these, so that's why I'm asking a couple of these questions. So for example, the Town Farm property that we were just talking about that has the residence on it, I don't think I understood that it's only a portion of this property that is being, is it only a portion of that? I don't know, trapezoid here on the map that is being appraised, or is it with the house on there?
It's
What
not
is-
with the house. That's my understanding. It's not with the house.
Okay, so it's kind of like there's some sort of line that you're gonna
Yes.
cut off and say the rest is
Yes.
open space.
I'm trying to see if I have it on I don't really have it on here, but yes, that's the goal. And some of it is to prevent like development rights as well, to protect, they want to protect development rights along the way, like we did with the Bowden property. So there's some other iterations of how land gets protected and set aside and makes it more desirable for the land trust to obtain and to protect.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President Blank.
Just curious, does the land trust or the town, once property is purchased, track the utilization of the property that's being purchased?
I don't think that they do. What we're trying to do more of now is to encourage greater participation in that. Like a land trust last year, we had about 30 people show up, and we're hoping as many this year. And I know Jenna Odell is doing a lot of nature walks on the properties to encourage that. You see it in the library. And she's trying to do displays there again to encourage greater participation. But it's hard to track because we don't know when people are using it. And some of our properties abut the, the Greenway too, which makes it easier for people to get on and off and experience the land trust as well.
Got it. I was just trying to understand if it was a good purchase or not, like for the land trust
It's a
by
great
maybe
purchase.
that, going on the member Ludwig's comment with the property on Town Farm Road with the house. Now, is the house going to put up a fence so that people know where they can and cannot walk?
I don't know that yet. We do have signs and markers that say where you enter the Coventry Land Trust property and where you exit. So we would be putting up markers as well.
Got it. I do find it interesting that we are purchasing a property with a house on it, so. Just. No, well, the house is being excluded, but we're purchasing the land around it, which I find odd. So I thought that was a solid question.
Solicitor Angel.
There are no dams on these properties, are there?
Right, we stay away from dams too. We do, we stay away from the dams.
Councilor Pasqua.
So there's going to be residents inhabiting this piece of land that's essentially going to be landlocked by town property.
Mhm.
Does that change any of the zoning situations for this property, setbacks and whatnot? And
The grantor would essentially be waiving their rights to do anything beyond their footprint. So, they're agreeing to be landlocked, if you will, and they kind of have what they have.
right.
And by granting this property, they're not entitled to hardship relief because essentially, and Director McLean can correct me, which I don't think he will, by creating their own hardship, they cannot then come in and pray for relief based on hardship. Can't do it. It's akin to someone who deeds their house away, if you will. That's not what's happening here, and creates a life estate for themselves. So they get to stay there. Will there be, just a question through the council, would there be any provision for what happens to the home after these folks have decided they no longer want to occupy it?
And just for the record on this one, this is a unique property and differently than the others. This one, we're only looking to purchase the development rights for future development on this lot. It is a more unique arrangement. We're not buying the house. We're really buying their ability to develop the rest of the lot, which they would have abilities to, potentially subdivide and have additional houses added in there. And I think with this, there'd be a negotiated arrangement of an easement and an areas and identified areas where public access would be granted. And then there'd be areas where certainly these people still own their home. It's still a piece of private property where public access may not be granted. That would all be negotiated and discussed as kind of part of the negotiation process. But really the first step before we even get into any of that is having someone appraise. And on this one, they would be appraising just for the development rights, the cost of acquiring development rights. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, perfectly said.
Councilor Shockley.
So that's very interesting. It's just to state you can't build on certain portions of your property. Given that they own the property, we just are saying you can't develop on it, but you're saying we'd still be able to allow people to utilize the property?
Yeah, I think that would be the understanding is we would restrict future development to really limit what's there now. And then I would see it as part of the negotiation process as identifying the areas of that private property where there would be public easements granted, access easements for the public's enjoyment on top of the private property. Now, the details of exactly where that line is, the easement line, was probably something we would negotiate as part of this process. Does that
So
make
the
sense?
easements are for the public, not for the property owner.
Correct.
Huh, that's interesting.
Vice President LeBlanc.
I'm not sure what the council's thought on this is, but before we move forward with an appraisal on that Mendy property, which is the Town Farm Road, I don't know if we want to ensure that the landowner would give us the right of first refusal. I don't know if we can have them do that, but that would be my motion. Because here's my thought. We get this property, and then obviously we're friendly with this owner, because otherwise they wouldn't be offering this to us. But what if someone moves in there and they create issues? I wouldn't want legal expenses having to be paid for because of the new owner. All it's doing is it's giving us the first option to purchase this house before they go to the open market. So before we spend any money on it, I just thought maybe it
Well,
would be smart for the council to do that.
I hear what you're saying, but I do think the appraisal is short money to know what this property is worth anyway for future use. I don't know that it's good information to have, in my opinion. I don't know if we need to have that motion now, or if the land trust hears the price and says we're willing to get serious. I'm not saying your point is invalid, but I don't know if we need that information to make the decision to just get the appraisal. If it's like you said, if it's $1,000, I think that information on that property is worth having.
I hear you. I hear your comments. But it's not just the cost of the appraisal. It's all of our payroll time, efforts, and all that kind of stuff that goes into it. So I was just throwing it out there as an option, but we don't need to.
Councilman Pasqua?
So just to clarify, you're only looking to purchase the development rights, not the actual land. So the town of Coventry will not become the landowner. Will purchase just the development rights of private property.
Correct.
Okay, and how does that change the tax structure? So if they're just selling the development rights to the town and they retain ownership, does it change the way we tax this property now? And are we setting a precedent on something like this?
Probably a detailed answer to that. And it probably takes some time for Carrie to evaluate it, more than just me showing her the map. But the answer is yes. I assume that there would be a process if they're essentially selling off their right for future development. We tax the land based on the value of the land, and essentially they would reduce the value by reducing their potential future improvements of it. Now, how that works, Carrie's the expert, and she might not feel comfortable commenting on the details of that until
So
we get a little farther.
I just want to keep the discussion to this. So if the council would like to only authorize the appraisal on the David Hayes and McGuire properties tonight, and then send your questions that you may have on the Mendy property to Mr. McLean, or I'm sorry, the town manager, I think that's the route to go, just to stay on topic here. That I think makes sense. So that way, given all the nuances of it, you can speak with Ms. Martini and we can get our questions answered, if that's what. But Councilor Shockley, I saw, had her hand raised.
My question was still on this property, and if the development rights became part of the deed, like no matter who owns this property, we still own the development rights.
Correct. Yeah, the purchase of the development rights, the restriction to improve would be in perpetuity and run with the land, regardless of ownership changes.
And I guess my other question, it might go along with your idea of future ownership of the property, is even though the development rights are part of the deed, are the easements. So
Yeah.
say a new owner doesn't want the same easements, he wants a larger berth or something like that.
No, they would be granted. in
The easements
perpetuity
are in perpetuity as well.
to run with the land. Yeah, I mean, these are all very good questions. It's a unique, and you can imagine the price point on this is reduced compared to what it would be for a simple fee purchase of the entire property. So I think what the town is looking to achieve is at a lower price point, conserving land, giving greater access, giving greater connectivity to other abutting lands, but without the same price point you get to purchase the overall property.
And I guess my other question, going towards the tax assessment, and I know we want to push this, but I just find this interesting. Is this land subdivided and developed? Does it have any sort of ability to be built upon at the moment? Because I understood that a large development, unless you subdivide it or perk test it and create a buildable lot, you don't pay the extra taxes on it.
It is 15 acres. It is subdividable. There is some wet areas,
But it's not subdivided.
not currently.
Okay.
No. So essentially a subdivision of land is a process that they could seek and have a by right subdivision. So I would assume part of the appraisal process would be to understand what's the highest and best use of this land at fully developed. And there would be some format where they'd really try to understand how many units they could fit, given the constraints of the land and what's there. So really, this is a bit of more of a unique appraisal than the others. And certainly, I mean, it's as the council wishes, we could push two forward and save one for additional questions. I do think that the initial ask is really, to help get us the tools to get more information on these. And then this would certainly be coming back in front of the council. It's really only the council that can authorize the use of these funds. So even in any negotiation, we're not quite sure. We want to get more information, but it's likely coming right back to you for further discussion for us to re-engage with these property owners.
All right, thank you. So I'd say we have some paths forward based on the pleasure of the council. The motion would be to approve the funds for the appraisal and then state the properties from there. We can, if the council wants to do all three, they can do all three, or if they would like to direct the town manager and Director McLean to answer some of the questions the council had tonight on the Mendy property, we can do that. So what's the pleasure of the council? Councilor Ludwig.
No matter what questions we get asked, we're still gonna probably want an appraisal to take place, just because if we determine like, hey, this is a unique thing to do, we want more people to do it, the next step is the appraisal. And then if we say we don't want people to do this, we're going to say we probably still want the appraisal so we can package all the numbers and tell the public why we don't want to do this. So I'm okay proceeding with the three approvals just for the appraisals, because in both cases, I'd need that information to say why I would proceed or not proceed with the additional funds for purchase of the lands, no matter what the agreement looked like, what easements, what first refusal rights thing. Before we even got there, I'd want to know, is it something we want to pursue as a town first? So I would be okay with approving all three tonight. I am open to hearing other reasons why people want to wait and what type of questions will go to help make that decision.
Further discussion from council members? Is there a motion on the floor?
Make the motion, we approve all three for appraisal
And the appropriation?
and the appropriation for the appraisal.
We have a motion from Councilman Pasqua. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Solicitor Angel, last one on your list, item C.
Actually, excuse me, since the agenda is out of order, there are actually two. I'd like to talk about the OPEB resolution as well. And I guess I'll start with that one because I'd like to bring Director McLean back to talk about the overhaul of the zoning ordinances. But first on the OPEB resolution that's before you. Resolution itself is pretty straightforward. It puts a tool in the administration's bag to, it's authorized by the Rhode Island general laws. This resolution would authorize the town's management to establish an OPEB trust to be essentially administered by the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust. They do this for any number of other communities. It provides management with a tool to put in its bag in negotiating union contracts, particularly with respect to retiree benefits. And, the legalities of this are pretty straightforward. That's, although the resolution if you have questions on them, I'm happy to answer those. The management, myself, Mr. Civetti, Mr. Parrillo, we've had meetings at the trust to understand what they do, how they do it. Mr. Civetti could better speak to the cost components unless Mr. Parrillo has that information. But this is just simply to authorize the establishment of the relationship with the interlocal trust for purposes of enrolling in the program. I'd ask, the manager Parrillo's Madam Chair, to speak on it.
Thanks. Yes, this basically also just is solidifying the agreement with the police department. So one of the police proposals in the agreement was in order to establish this OPEB trust for them, so they would have healthcare benefits in retirement. That agreement calls for the town to deposit $100,000 into this account. They are already making a 1% withdrawal out of their accounts, out of their checks. That also will be going into this once it's established and passed by the council, in order to solidify that ongoing process of keeping their post-employment benefits in place and creating some stability within the police department. So this is the mechanism to get that done.
Vice President LeBlanc.
I just have two friendly amendments to this. We say OPEB 4 times, but we actually don't define it. So I would think in the title, maybe we just put other post-employment benefits and then define OPEB, just a suggestion. And then there's an extra R on the first bullet point where it says R and then RI general loss. What, OPEB? Oh, with the R. With the R. Oh,
yeah. If I may, Madam President, the OPEB, some of this language, not much of this language is worked out by agreement between the fiduciary, the trust, and the town. OPEB is a term of art that's defined in the statute. So that's why they want it done this way. You may also notice, for example, that they talk about a plan administrator, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, my pages are out of order for some reason. Your plan administrator, for example, is defined in numbered paragraph 3 on the second page. And then it's defined elsewhere. We didn't have a lot of latitude as to what we call that, but we could designate the financial officer to be the plan administrator. So I would just counsel the caution on the wording changes. I'd have to get approval.
I'm kind of shocked by that because this is a town council resolution. So I just thought kind of spelling out what OPEB is. But if that's the case, we don't have to do it.
Further discussion from the council? Councilor Shockley.
Just a question. So this would be, while we're moving forward with this because of an agreement we made with our police contract, any town employee that falls under the town council umbrella through outside arrangements, like if we were to change their contracts in any way, would be able to fall under this as well.
That's correct.
And if we were to bring fire districts, for instance, under our umbrella who had post-retirement employee benefits, this would house that as well.
That's correct.
And they wouldn't all have to work the same. They would all fall under this same.
The program, if you will, or the contributions, right? Or the type of health insurance that would be offered per union could be different.
Okay, that's interesting.
Further discussion on the resolution? Do I hear a motion to approve resolution 2023-74 authorizing the adoption of the Rhode Island Interlocal Risk Management Trust OPEB funding program?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Councilor Shockley, second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Solicitor Angel.
Last item. Sorry, Last item is just a discussion of an overhaul to the zoning ordinances. If Director McLean, Madam President, could come up as well. You've all met him prior to now, but the official introduction is, here's Doug McLean, our new planning
Actually,
director.
if I could, we have other non-town visitors here I wanted to get to before we go right to Doug.
Sounds good to me.
I didn't know if you had.
No, I
specific
do
comments.
have specific comments, but I didn't know
Okay.
how useful or what
Yep, if
comments.
you want to
Doug wanted
say,
make.
I wasn't just gonna go right into your report. For that. That's fine.
So we are engaged in a rather large project with Mr. McLean's department, the solicitor's office. There's a consultant that has been hired. As the council has been made aware by me, and I'm sure by others, there are major mandated changes to zoning codes in every municipality is mandated by the General Assembly in its last session. Those changes are to take effect January 1st of 2024. We are fortunate enough to be in the final stages of the overhaul of our comprehensive plan. I won't speak to that. Mr. McLean can speak to that when you hear from him. The comprehensive plan and its relationship with the changes that have been made to land use law in the state, particularly with respect to affordable housing, low to moderate income housing, streamlining the processes, what boards and what commissions here, what has been changed. There's less of an they've taken many steps out of the planning process, delegated many of those back to the planning board and taken some of them away from the zoning boards. You'll hear more of that when the substantive changes of the law are put before you. But I wanted to make the council aware that while a consultant has been engaged and funds have been made available to do that through the state, and we are taking advantage of that, they will be identifying those general areas of our code that need overhaul, and we will be looking to integrate those into the code, put it into the proper language, and change other sections of our code that would necessarily have to change as a result of those state law changes. And we're on kind of a tight timeline to get that done, since before you know it, the holidays will be here and it will in fact be the first of the year. So yeah, I wanted to make the council aware of that, that there'll be a pretty aggressive grouping of legislation that comes before the council that will affect land use in this town, but it's just not a Coventry thing. Other municipalities are going through it as well. The major impediment that they have is that their comprehensive plan and their housing production plan are not in the kind of shape that ours are in. I know so often since I've sat here, we've talked about what doesn't work. We find ourselves in a position where we're in a good position with the comprehensive plan. For municipalities that are not in the position that we will be in with our comprehensive plan and a housing production plan, they will be punished once the state law is implemented with respect to the development process. You know, presently, for example, and I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. If someone files a plan to develop affordable housing, and you're in the town's comprehensive plan and housing production plan is out of date, not approved by the state, and you're below the minimum threshold for your affordable housing quotient, you have to meet an enhanced burden of proof should the development be denied and you find yourself in a courtroom. In many municipalities who are already at a disadvantage with the new legislative scheme coming into effect in January, will find themselves at a greater disadvantage. We will not find ourselves at that disadvantage, assuming that we make the legislative changes that we have to. Our comp plan and everything else will be on par, and I would think not provide that burden to us should there be an appeal of a denial. So I just want to make the council aware that we look like we're on track for that. There are some rumblings that there are municipalities joining together to ask the legislature to postpone the implementation of the change for January 1st. But anyone who knows how the legislature works, they're not coming back into session until the first of the year. So we are where we are with that. So we're on target, and it's a large undertaking.
Any questions, comments from the council? All right, I'm going to continue to take the agenda out of order just to get out some visitors this evening. I'm going to move to Resolution D, Stage 2 Ride application. We don't have Phil with us. I got a note. Hi. Welcome. So this evening, I did make sure we had on the agenda just a presentation, just very briefly. The council has pretty much seen this before, but just as a refresher, before authorizing and endorsing the Stage 2 submission. As a reminder, we did submit a Stage 2 back in February. You're not losing it, but because we scaled back the bond amount and we changed the project scope, that's why we have to submit a revised Stage 2 at the fall deadline. So that's why this is in front of you again. So if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. My name is Tracy Donnelly from Studio Jade Architects. So just to go through the agenda, we're just going to go through the revised scope of work and the proposed scope of work and the schedule and next steps for the Stage 2 application. The proposed scope of work focuses on healthy school learning environments. That includes indoor air quality, clean water, wastewater system improvements, improved thermal comfort, facilities for fitness and well-being, life safety improvements, and high impact visual enhancements. You can see the proposed scope of work as it's broken down by the existing school buildings. And if you go to the next slide, it actually has the amount designated to each school building, with Coventry High School at 10 million, Western Elementary School at 4 million, Washington Oaks Elementary School, Hopkins Hill Elementary School, and Tioga Elementary School, Blackrock Elementary School at 500,000, and ASF Middle School at 9 million, for a total of 25 million application funding reimbursement request to RIDE. Coventry High School, looking at the projects that are proposed in the 10 million, it includes projects such as the gymnasium floor replacement, gymnasium improvements, gymnasium bleachers, science lab casework, fitness center improvements, restrooms renovation and improvements, automatic fire suppression, HVAC improvements, sanitary septic and site improvements, and new entrance vestibule. Western Elementary School, domestic water distribution, restroom construction and improvements, interior finish replacement, window replacement, site improvements, and some other miscellaneous improvements. Washington Oaks Elementary School, HVAC improvement includes new rooftop unit replacement, site improvements, miscellaneous improvements, interior finishes, wall paint and flooring. Hopkins Hill, again, HVAC improvements, site improvements, interior finishes and upgrades. Tioga, HVAC improvements, mechanical piping, site improvements, interior finishes and upgrades. Blackrock Elementary School, HVAC improvements, site improvements, interior finishes and upgrades to interiors. Allen Shawn Feinstein Middle School, gymnasium improvements, restroom improvements, HVAC improvements includes rooftop unit replacement, roof replacement, and site improvements. The RIDE Stage 2 submission is due to RIDE this Friday, September 15th. We have received school building committee recommendation on June 28th, school committee approval on August 10th, and we're requesting the town council approval to submit the stage 2 application tonight.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Vice President LeBlanc?
Thank you very much for coming this evening. When I went through the project estimates, on a project by project basis, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you add up all the miscellaneous, it comes to 1,480,000. So do you happen to know what makes up that $1.5 million by chance? Because it just says miscellaneous, so.
It does, and we can describe it further once we go into what Ride calls stage 3, but it's very, I don't want to say little, but miscellaneous has to do with very specific items within each school. So the next step, once you get the stage 2 approval, is stage 3 approval to Ride, and we would come back and describe more detail and have detailed drawings for each project.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Shockley?
I'm not sure that you have this information tonight, whereas Phil may have. But many of these Coventry High School improvements also come with grant funding. So while it's a $10 million bond, when it comes to things like the gymnasium improvements, science lab improvements, fitness center improvements, and the sanitary septic, there are both grants that the school is getting as well as grants that the town will be getting on top of this 10 million. So while we have 10 million that we're bonding for, we're actually probably getting closer to $15 million in projects.
Correct. And what this application is a funding request to Ride to get reimbursement back on the dollars that the town contributes. So anything you get funded elsewhere is not eligible for reimbursement.
100%. Just
Yeah.
wanted to make clear that we're getting
Correct.
more money that we won't have to be paying back in order to make greater improvements.
Great.
Councilman Pasqua?
Are we getting any financial information tonight as far as what the bond impact would be?
No, this is
Okay.
just on the submission, the architectural submission to Ride for stage 2. So basically just the details of what the details of the overview that you were shown tonight.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep. We do have that slated for a meeting, I believe, the second meeting this month, for that discussion.
Okay.
Any further discussion or questions? Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
So the resolution is on page 102 in your packets, authorizing and endorsing the stage 2 Ride submission, resolution number 2023-72. Whereas in the town of Coventry, the school building committee hereinafter SBC has been engaged since March 2023 to evaluate the present school building deficiencies and future school building needs of the Coventry Public School District, hereinafter CPSD. And the SBC's evaluation has resulted in a recognition of the need for construction, renovation, rehabilitation, repair, improvements, furnishing and equipping of and/or additions to all CPSD school buildings, collectively referred to as the plan, not to exceed $25 million. And there has been a stage 1 submission concerning the project to Ride, which was authorized and endorsed by the Coventry Town Council. And the Town Council has received a presentation from Philip Conte of Studio Jade, architectural consultants for the plan, concerning the submission of a stage 2 submission to Ride concerning the plan. And the deadline for the stage 2 submission is September 15th, 2023. Now therefore be it resolved that the Honorable Town Council authorizes and endorses the stage 2 submission to Ride concerning the plan. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage, and the town clerk is directed to provide as many certified copies to any agent of the SBC as are necessary to effectuate its stated purpose. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Motion by Councilman Pasqua,
I'll second.
second by Councilor Shockley. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you very much for your patience. Manager Parrillo, do we have a representative from Verizon this evening for that? We do. I thought so. So we'll move to council business matters carried over Item A, carried over from August 22nd, 2023, Town Council meeting. Approval of Verizon to be granted permission to lay and maintain underground conduits, manholes, cables, and wires. We have, are you Donald, is it Voner?
Yes, Don, please.
Don? Okay. Installing underground conduits, manholes, cables, and wires on West Log Bridge Road. This again carried over from August 22nd. We had some questions from members of the council. I don't know if you want to give an introduction and just give some detail first.
Sure, yes. And I did get the questions in advance.
Great.
Thank you. Essentially what this is they're trying to hook up the windmills. So there's already underground conduit that's connecting the windmills, but Verizon needs to get their wires in the conduits so that they can connect up as well. But there's a piece of it that goes on Town Road. And that's why I'm here to petition you folks, so we can go back into those conduits and hook them up. If that's
Councilman Pasqua.
Does this work that you're doing benefit the residents at all? Is it strictly for the windmills?
my understanding is strictly for the windmills. I don't know the intent, why, what the purpose behind it, but that was one of the questions, right? It was residential or not. My understanding is it's not, it's for the windmills. And another question was existing or new windmills existing. We have several easements in place with the windmill owners, and we're trying to connect up the usage with the windmill owners so that we can have them all integrated.
So what would this do for the windmills exactly? Any idea?
It would connect up the junction boxes so that whatever power comes out can, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be used after that, but
Gotcha.
It's just going to connect the whole system up so it's all one system instead of, windmill over here, they're not working together.
Councilman Ludwig.
You seem like a very nice gentleman. I presume that's why they sent you. I am not going to vote yes on this tonight. I'm going to vote a no. I don't have enough information. I don't know what this is. I don't want to approve anything that is going to further harm residents in this town for the windmills, which I know, sir, is not your problem. But I don't care if it says Verizon on here or Windmill USA. I'm not approving this tonight. I would not even approve if we say, let's take it to one additional meeting. If someone just says, I want to table this, we'll get all of our questions to the town manager and that type of thing. I'd be open to that. But I don't want to put a timeline on this for this council until we have every one of our questions answered on exactly what this is going to do.
Councilman Pasqua.
I agree, and thank you. I agree with that. This has been a hot topic for our town, these windmills, and there's nothing that I want to do to support them in any way. To be honest with you, this is not going to move forward with a yes vote from me. It's been a hot topic. There's still some work to be done on that issue from my side, and we will do it. And I'm certainly not going to advance them any further than they are at this point. And it's no fault of your own. It's something that, you guys weren't involved in. So, but there ain't going to be any support out of me for anything to do with the windmills whatsoever.
Vice President LeBlanc.
I'd like to echo the comments made by Member Ludwig and Member Pasqua, and I'm glad that we as a council had asked for Verizon to send somebody to speak to us. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Councilor Shockley.
Usually I don't comment if other people have already commented in a way I agree with. In this particular case, there's very little we can do for the residents as far as having these windmills, but I do think that any moves forward, I want to make sure that any and all questions are answered and we know what our rights are moving forward with any sort of windmill item put before us before we move forward with anything. So like I said, I typically don't glom on, but I think in this case, I've had so much resident feedback that it's necessary to.
We could.
I would, yeah, I would, again, nothing against you, but I think this council has been one that has made a commitment that if we feel that we don't have enough information, we want to make a very educated decision. And I think to vote on this tonight is not just an invitation to dig up our road, but it's an invitation to continue to enable further activity that we don't know the extent of. So with that, what's the pleasure of the council?
Madam President, motion to table definitely until we have information.
I'll second.
I don't know if the motion's to table per se, or is it postpone? What would you recommend? Okay,
Make a motion to postpone this resolution, this petition.
motion from Councilman Pasqua. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilor Ludwig. Any discussion on the motion to postpone? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
You were lovely.
Thank you for, sorry to have you wait so long. Thank you. Oh, my God.
Moving to Resolution C, Resolution 2023-75, Tax Assessors Additions and Abatements for September 2023, pages 81 to 87 in your packet. Come on up, Carrie. Hi, just make sure the mic's on for me.
I think it is.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so as you can see, we have abatements in the amount of $21,936.17. And additions, prorate tax roll, $79,242.66, and supplemental tax roll, $58,378.22. Questions?
To get discussion started, do I hear a motion? Is it to approve the abatements? Yeah. First motion, to approve the additions and abatements. I'm sorry, the abatements, as set out in the memorandum, $21,936.17.
Make the motion.
Motion from Councilman Pasqua, second by Vice President LeBlanc. Discussion on the abatements. Councilor Shockley.
So I'm not sure if this is new to our packet. The supplementals. I don't remember ever really looking through the supplementals. They all,
The reports look different.
does it look different?
The
Okay,
reports
thank
look-
you.
They do.
Because it appeared different to me, but this is the same report we've typically gotten on any.
Yes,
Tangibles.
usually we have a prorated roll and a supplemental roll.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything I was missing. So thank you.
Any further discussion on the abatements? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you.
Oh, and the, do I hear a motion to approve the additions as outlined in the memorandum? 2023 RP Pro Tax Roll $79,242.66 and 2023 RP/TNG Supplemental Tax Roll $58,378.22.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilor Shockley. Discussion on additions. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you. Resolution B. Resolution 2023-73 to enter into an agreement for parking lot maintenance with Done Right Seal Coating, 241 Log Bridge Road, Coventry, Rhode Island, pages 75 to 80 in your packets. Mr. McGee.
Good evening. We look at maintaining our municipal parking lots on a regular basis. And by industry standards, it should be between 5 and 7 years. We are now in year 7. Back in 2016 is the last time that we took care of the parking lots. We reached out to 5 companies locally, received quotes back from 3 of them, and I think you have the breakdown. And we're recommending award to Dun & Right Seal Coating. The time frame is normal weather. October 15th is usually when we're shut down, when the ground temperature is 50 degrees ambient. Higher is supposed to be to do the seal coating, but this will be doing crack filling, seal coating, and pavement markings on not only the town hall library, it'll be also be the animal control. We're gonna be doing it at the annex building in the front and the Walker Lane side, and also Public Works. And those will all be done. These are all within the operating budget of Public Works.
To get discussion started, do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc.
Second.
Second by Councilman Pasqua. Discussion. Councilor Shockley.
So is this only needed to be done every 5 to 7 years for buildings where people work?
No, it's just the pavement preservation because it goes through the snow plowing, salting, traffic. You know, like you paint your house, you want the paint to be wearing, not the actual house itself. We don't want the asphalt to be wearing, we want the seal coat itself to be wearing. And also for safety, we want the pavement markings to be in place. And we want to make sure any cracks that we did 7 years ago are redone. If any cracks are opening up or any new cracks, they're sealed before the seal coating is installed.
And our pavement markings, just things like, what's that?
Striping.
Striping. Can I ask why we aren't thinking of doing this at Foster Field, where it's somewhat dangerous of a parking lot
Foster
at this
Field,
point?
that's part of Parks and Recreation. You have to ask them.
So, okay, so all these parking lots are
This
part of
comes- this-
DPW.
This comes under our purview.
Okay, because you had the library, but
Town hall library.
because of the fact that it's all in the same parking lot. I got you. Okay, then.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
thank you. Resolution A, Resolution 2023-71 to enter into an agreement for purchase of rifle ballistic protection with the Coventry Police Department with Rhode Island Uniform and Supply Incorporated, Atlantic Tactical Inc., and Galls. It's pages 61 to 74 in your packet. Welcome, Chief.
The purpose of this resolution is to outfit our officers and SWAT team with ballistic vests. We're currently, our vests are 20 years old, or actually over 20 years old. We got them on a military surplus, and they're actually, some of them are crumbling and falling apart. So this will allow us to outfit them with more in the vehicles. Should we have an active shooter event or something?
To get discussion started, do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Motion from Councilman Pasqua,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion. Chief, we have a regional SWAT team with West Warwick, correct?
Yes.
So this is just to outfit Coventry's section of that regional team, not West Warwick's as well, right?
Correct. That's
Okay.
for our officers.
Discussion. Councilmember Shockley.
So this is another expenditure. I believe at the last meeting, we had expenditures out of the federal forfeiture account.
Correct.
And this full amount will come from the federal forfeiture account as opposed to the
Yes.
budget.
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President is absent presently, and President Lima.
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Councilor Shockley.
Can I ask that any of these accounts that we can pay expenditures out of, when we get budget updates, we get updates on what's in these as well as maybe a listing of what we're allowed to purchase out of these accounts. I know they have guardrails around them. I feel like when we look at the budget, we're not looking at the full picture or showing the full picture to our residents of alternative sources that we have for funding important things like this.
Vice President LeBlanc.
I would vote to approve this, just
Thank you.
for the record.
I'll make that note.
Any further comments? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Doug, we'll move to report of town officers and officials, planning zoning director. I've heard McLean and McLean. Which is it?
I'll take either, but McLean.
McLean?
Yeah, I think John McLean Die Hard.
Okay.
Nice. That's a great Christmas.
That's how I'll always think of it.
Great. Great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, just for council members, I had brought this up to be placed on the agenda because it kind of occurred to me that we hadn't formally really met Doug and the public hadn't formally met him. So just want to bring him forward. And also, we hadn't gotten a kind of quarterly update on current projects from that department. So I figured we could kill two birds with one stone here tonight. So
Oh, boy. I'll try on the second one.
take it away.
All right. It was nice to meet all of you informally at your meeting last
The high
month,
school.
a few weeks ago at the high school. It's nice to be here again tonight. I'll keep my piece pretty quick and high level. I think I'll just give you a little background on me and what we might have coming in front of us in Coventry planning in broad terms. And then, touch a little bit on that zoning rewrite project. And then just be open to questions. I don't have a specific update of projects, but we certainly have a number. We certainly have a big one that we're going to be reviewing in a meeting tomorrow night, Coventry Crossings. But I'll be ready for questions and do my best for you guys. In terms of me, I have 16 years of professional planning experience in Rhode Island, a mix of municipal and consulting planning experience. I actually have a personal side consulting practice, which is still active, although it's certainly taken a back seat based on the busy schedule I have with Coventry lately. In terms of my municipal stops before this, I've worked for the communities of North Kingstown, South Kingstown, and Cranston before this. Cranston certainly where I had some positive overlap with those two gentlemen that are sitting to your left, Dan Parrillo, Steve Angel. That was a big bonus for me coming here, having some familiarity with the leadership that was here. Very excited to be here in general. Very excited for the opportunity for myself personally. Very excited for what I see as some great positive advancements that can be made in Coventry's planning functions. On the subject of the future of Coventry planning, I see a very busy time ahead. I think this will be a very busy next few years and for the foreseeable future. We have a lot of specific projects that are coming up, but coming to Coventry and asking people that I'm familiar with that are both on the planning side and the development side, the land use attorney side, everyone's pretty familiar that Coventry is where a lot of growth is going to happen based on the price of land, based on the availability for development. I see that this is a place where there was already a focus for future growth and development. I also see that the changing state laws is to some degree going to make future development a little more streamlined. So I do see this as being a busy time for us for development review. We certainly have the major code rewrite process. I'll touch on that a little later. A few other big things that we have on our plate. We have the comprehensive plan that is currently under review with the state. And we do expect comments back from the state on that plan within a month. We'll work to address those comments. And then we begin the local review and formal adoption process, which will have a stop at the Planning Commission. They'll have their chance to really dive into the details of that document. And then it'll come to the council for a final stop. You'll have your chance to dive into that document as well. We're looking to ramp up the town's capacity to apply for and administrate the annual CDBG application to provide for good, housing creation, repair, and other monies to provide local service providers for low to moderate income residents of Coventry. That's something that I know that there was a big effort to push for this summer for a few specific projects, but I think we see the department is trying to reinvigorate that on an annual basis. We certainly have an active group of commissions and committees that we staff through the planning department. All of them are, looking to make their own advancements in their own rights. So we're looking to provide them guidance and provide them with the tools so that they can gain and grow in their own capacities and in their own ways to help the community. So there's a lot to do and a lot to learn in the process. We have a big staff turnover. Obviously, myself coming in, I'm about 3 months in. We have a new staff planner just underneath me, the number 2 planner. Also another Cranston transplant, someone that I worked with there, know very well, very quality, good planner. It's hard to find good young planners in the state. We don't have a planning school in the state anymore, so it's a little hard to find those good people. I'm very happy that we were able to have him come in. Obviously, with Herb and John Studley leaving, that's been a big transition and a lot of learning to do. In terms of the project, the code rewrite project, that's likely where we're going to have some direct interaction with the council coming up. We have a consultant. We've been fortunate to get in an application to Rhode Island Housing early, have a consultant brought to our aid. We're one of only a few communities that were made available, to have this consulting assistance at zero cost to the community. So we want to take good advantage of that. Out of the communities that were given, they asked that 3 of us try to partner together to kind of pool resources, pool ideas. So this project that we're going through is technically we're sharing the consultant between Cumberland and Lincoln and Coventry. We're going to be sharing ideas on how we're handling these things. There's a lot of common challenges. About that project, there's a lot to talk about. I don't even want to get into a lot of the meat of it because we're going to be a few meetings with you guys in terms of a joint work session format. One of them that we're targeting is coming up at your regular meeting, September 26th. And we see that as taking the first chunk of that meeting and being able to dedicate some time to discuss it, have our consultant here educate us all, and the planning commission members will be here as well. But we're really going to tackle this thing in the best way we can. Out of all the state law changes, the best way to think about it is there's stuff that we have some opportunity for some wiggle room. Make sure we get it right, make sure we address it correctly in our local code. That's where we're going to be spending all of our time before January 1. There's a lot of changes that are coming that we don't have wiggle room. They're mandated, and essentially, whether our local code changes or not, we would default to the new state law on January 1. It's proper for us to make changes in our local code, but for those items, we're going to treat them as tier 2, which is stuff that we're going to address after January 1, because there's no consequence for the code to be in the position it is. So because this is such a massive code change, we're going to triage it and treat just the things where we need to work on where our wiggle room is, get those things right. And then the stuff where we have zero wiggle room, we will adopt, but we'll focus on that after January 1, just to give you an idea of, what the scale and scope of the project will be. To give you a sense of just, I think one example, a lot of the code is changing in a lot of ways, shifting responsibilities between staff, between the boards, between some of the boards themselves, and responsibilities that used to belong to the zoning board being given to the planning commission. A 9-lot subdivision in Coventry would previously account for what we would call a major subdivision. It would have 3 required stops in the review process. There'd be an unrequired pre-app, but we'd still do that. A conceptual plan review after that with hearings. Then there'd be a preliminary plan after that with public meetings, opportunities for public to see details. And then there'd be a final plan that'd be done administratively. That same project after January 1 will be done entirely administratively by staff. So that is a very different process. This is a mandate from the state to try to streamline housing. And we have to figure out the best way to address that. And we have some ideas, but we'll get into that discussion of some of the general strategies and the ways that I see us handling that and the consultant's guidance on that. We'll get into some of that on September 26th. So with that being said, I think gives you guys a sense of some of the things that we have coming up. Certainly going to have a lot of overlap with the solicitor and the managers, you know, in this project, and all these major projects coming up. So we're looking forward to a busy time and giving you guys some good information as we start to tackle these projects. So any questions, you know, feel free to let me know.
And Director, I'd assume you have an open door to the council. If anyone wanted to come meet with you one-on-one to talk about, you know, what's going on in their district, you'd be happy to do so.
Absolutely.
Okay. Councilman Pasqua.
Just one quick question for clarification, I guess. So there will be no more public hearings for developments 9 or greater when it comes to subdivisions like that? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, there's a lot of details to that. A 9-lot subdivision without street creation becomes an administrative review. That's probably the most glaring example of a project that's fairly significant in size and would have triggered a multiple step process in front of our plan commission before. Now that's administrative. If they need zoning relief, a variance, a special use permit, okay, now they get elevated. If they have street creation, now they get elevated. They're back in front of the board. Just a lot of the little details and the nuances of that are things that we're going to kind of walk through. But one of the major shifts in general across the board is that they're trying to dedicate more review to the staff level and administrative level. It does put more pressure on staff. You can imagine that these projects sometimes are not popular. There's a lot of visibility. There's a lot of desire for interaction that's going to be very difficult to manage when we don't have the opportunity to elevate things to the commission. So hopefully that helps give you guys a sense of what we're going to be in for.
But I think it's important to note for the public when we have these workshops later that whether we adjust our code or not, they're coming.
Correct.
It's so this is us making the decision to make sure that our own codes here in town are up to date.
We have some ideas on the best strategy of how to position Coventry for this. And we're in a fortunate position to have, be getting started on it right now, to have consultants that are going to help us, to have a plan of action to get you guys good information and get everybody educated on this. There's I assume, going to be a lot of pushback across the entire state from councils, from staff about this. Really, there are parts of this that we don't have a choice. We have to swallow, but we have to get that wiggle room right. So that's where I think it's going to be good for you guys to be able to digest that, for members of the public that are interested, other members of the development community to see, so that we're not all just leading into the end of December. Okay, here's all the information. Please make a vote. We want to give you guys, piece this to you as much as we can, because there's going to be a lot of content coming to you in terms of code changes.
Okay. Councilor Ludwig.
Welcome, Mr. McLean. So a lot of the issues that residents call me about, and maybe also other counselors, have to do with code enforcement, process of violation. I did a search and I found that this person can't do this, but then I called the office and they said that they can't get out there for at least a week. So I get a lot of phone calls from people that are upset about what they see as someone either breaking an ordinance, not following the rules here in some way. I think because we're coming up to the upcoming budget season and you have such a fresh perspective here, just being here for a few months, it would be very helpful to understand if you think there's anything we can do in the short term to help, review some of the items that maybe.
I just want to be careful with OMA just because it's on new zoning changes or current projects, but I respect what you're trying to say, but I think you get the sentiment of what she's trying to say, but I just want to be careful on OMA that we don't run into a violation there. So I don't know if you guys want to connect, but
we can use all the support and resources in our department. So, that's certainly bigger, broader conversation. In terms of all of the administrative functions of enforcing on the zoning code, that is a busy component that is under my department. Without getting into the details of it, we're definitely busy there. And doing what we can to address those concerns as we receive them.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I'm not
if I-
clear on how we're violating or possibly violating, so I'll try and keep it general, but it was my understanding that we're doing an introduction here, so we could just talk about a few things that we're looking for the zoning office to look into. Is that not within the scope of this conversation, or?
No, he was just introducing himself to the council. It wasn't an open invitation to talk about planning department operations. So totally understand. I'd rather be on the safe side, given recent violations that have been reported against the council in the past year. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. But as Doug said, he's, has an open door. If anyone would like to come and meet with him and discuss that, he's welcome to.
If I may, Madam President, I think a way to address Councilwoman Ludwig's concern is I've had direct conversations with Mr. McLean in the context of zoning changes about reorganizing where certain positions and department functions fall, particularly with respect to zoning enforcement. It's unusual for zoning enforcement to fall in the table of organization under the director of planning, since the director of planning would essentially be overseeing an individual who potentially is being asked to police parts of a decision made by the planner. Right. And we've talked about that in a much larger sense, but I think that may open the door to the questions that you have with respect to enforcement. We are evaluating that.
I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense to me.
We talked about in the context of changes. So if the question or comment falls within that line.
Is your question with respect to zoning changes or just zoning enforcement?
It's not really a question. If it's something you can think about in terms of how that works together and bring those ideas to the council, that would be helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion from members of the council? Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah. I look forward to it. I look forward to September 26th. It'll be a good opportunity to dive into this project a little bit more. And then in general, happy to be here. Look forward to doing some good work with you guys.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Happy to have you. And for the grand finale, Manager Parrillo.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to get Mr. McGee out of here a little earlier. We were granted the state's municipal road program grant that we applied for, that Mr. McGee applied for, of approximately $800,000. With that comes a 2/3 match. So we're going to be coming to the council in 2 weeks and asking you to approve 1.6 million in ARPA to go with that 800,000 from the state to keep our road paving program going. Dr. McGee's already reached out to the company to kind of keep this process going. There is wording in the contract to add more work to them. So the plan is to go as long as they can this year and then right into next year with the list of streets that was approved by the state to move forward on. So that is definite good news that we're going to get another 2.6 million in paving done.
And that list is on pages 43 to 45 in your packets.
Yes.
Vice President Blank.
Just in case we're using this sheet for resolutions in the future, when you add up the 1,606,458 and the 797,42, it's actually off by $1,000. The 2,397,200.
All right. I'll clarify that for the resolution. Thanks.
Thank you. Any discussion with the council on that item? All right.
Okay, lastly, Maria Broadbent and I met with Housing Secretary Pryor about 3 weeks ago. and his staff to discuss housing a homeless shelter here in Coventry. The state is looking for communities that will be willing to shelter some homeless people throughout the winter from November to approximately March. So in reviewing the properties that the town has, the only two that we really came up with that were viable were the old police station and the old teen center. So last week, Maria, Kevin, and I met with the contractors from the state at both those properties, and the state is interested in moving forward with the teen center location as a possible location for this shelter. With that being said, there's a lot of steps we have to go through between now and November 1st. Part of it is making sure that the zoning fits. Right now it's an R20. We really don't have shelter in our use table by definition. So that's something we're working with Doug with right now. We're also exploring some state law options that might give the council the authority to bless this project on state property, on town property. So I'm going to have Solicitor Angel look into that. I had Mr. Phelps there today looking at the building, making sure that we can move forward with permits. It looks like they're going to need some additional bathrooms and showering facilities that the state's going to pay for. Also going to need some relief when it comes to the fire marshal's office. I'm meeting with the fire marshal tomorrow on that because there's no sprinklers in that building. So that's another relief that we may need from the fire marshal. So it's really a fast moving process. The next step for the state is they have to have a provider go to the teen center, say, yes, we want to staff it, we want to secure it, we want to do all things that are necessary to have it. They apply for the state to the state. State approves it. We get a lease. Lease comes in front of the council for approval. They're going to utilize that building as a shelter. Again, many steps to go, but yeah. Go for it.
So there is a location where the state is asking that we house a certain homeless population.
Yes.
Homeless people from where? Like our own community's homeless people?
Yes.
Where do they go after March? So you're not homeless for 4 months a year, you're homeless all year. We house them from November to March. Where do they go in April?
So the goal of this is to get them out from the cold for the winter. That is the goal of the state.
Which I very much appreciate. I'm just, I feel as if, what do they do during the day when they're not sleeping at this shelter? How many people can be housed at this shelter? I know West Warwick is going through a lot of issues right now with their Arctic section because there is a population of homeless people that is simply taking over their park.
So all these stipulations are going to be in that agreement. They're looking at 16 to 20 people in that building. Not sure if it's going to be male, female, or couples in that building. We are going to set parameters when it comes to background checks of who's going to be in that building, what the time frame is, loitering, the use of the building. All of that's going to be in this agreement that we're going to be getting answers for, along with having some type of public outreach to see what the concerns of the neighborhood is as well.
And do we have a right to say no? I mean, everything you said up until the point that you said it goes before the council sounds like this is moving forward with the state.
So the council has full authority to say no.
Okay, because I think we're telling a community of Coventry that we are going to allow 16 to 20 homeless people to live there. We would need to know a lot about what we're doing to help support these people outside of letting them live there so that they may attain housing or whatever needs that they have that has caused them to be homeless. And that these people are not going to be vagrants in our areas during the day because they're sheltered there at night. While I appreciate the sentiment of the project, which is to keep people off the streets in the cold, that I would need to know a lot more about this population that we would be willing to shelter.
So I would say maybe we can have the council members submit questions to you to be ready for that.
Sure.
Okay. Vice President LeBlanc.
I'm assuming that we'd have some type of employees, staff during the day and at night at this.
The state will staff at 24/7,
But is there parking?
2 spots.
And that's going to be enough for the employees?
But they said they would utilize the 2 spots and they would probably try to get some permission to park in the parking lot where the hardware store is. Yes, exactly.
And then if they get deliveries, where's the truck going to park? Just on the street?
We haven't even gotten that far yet.
I'm just,
Yeah.
that location seems a little off to me, but just my 2 cents.
Yep.
Councilman Pasqua.
Other cities, and for example, Providence has crossroads, and one of the issues that they have, it's a huge strain on public safety because police are always in and out of there, and EMS is constantly transporting patients from that location, whether ETOH or whatnot. And I don't know how this is going to be set up, but like, in some situations, it's first come, first serve for the night. So you end up with all the people who don't get a spot and they want to go to the hospital because it's warm and they want a meal. I get it. And I understand that, but it is going to put a huge stress on those type of resources. Is there anything that the state would be giving towards the fire districts or anything for reimbursement towards having to provide that? It's going to be a huge increase in call
Yeah,
volume.
we have not gotten to that point yet. I think the reason everything is preliminary, obviously, the project manager, if you want to call them, may go there and say, we can't fund it, we can't staff it, we don't think it's the right location. We've only done really temporary stuff right now. But with the November 1st date, we're trying to get things moving along. So we're trying to do our share regarding the fire marshal, the building official, Director McGee was there. We're trying to do our part to help. Again, they asked us to help. We're offering it. Whether it comes to fruition or not at the very end, I don't know, but it's an offer that we're trying to accommodate.
Understood.
Councilor Ludwig.
So this would still have to go through the normal planning approval process, correct? Because you mentioned it's in an R20, so this isn't even zoned for shelter right now, right?
We don't have a shelter zone in town. There is no use for a shelter.
That's where this feedback.
There is no use in the code right now for shelter. But like I said, I believe there is, I don't know, I have against the sort of Angel check it. I believe there is state law that allows the council to approve use of a town-owned building for whatever use they see fit, as long as it's not being used for its initial intended purpose. So it's very gray. But that's how we see that this could happen, as opposed to going to planning or zoning or any other avenue because of the time frame.
So I am going to have a really hard time approving something in an R20 neighborhood. And then the council can come in and say, or the government and us in this case, and say, I don't care if you're in R20. I'm going to put a shelter there because this is town building. I'm going to have a real problem approving that. Just government coming in and saying, we're basically going to do what we want with this. So I know I heard all the other concerns. Those are, all
We're
things
trying
we
to
have
shelter our own citizens. That's the goal here.
Yeah,
is to shelter our own homeless citizens.
I get it. At first I thought, oh, why are you touching my precious old police building? But I get it. You need to look at opportunities. I get it. Thank you for telling us about this. I'm just stating, I personally am going to have a really hard time approving anything where we as the government come in and say, oh, well, to the zoning, oh, well, we're going to do whatever we want because this little loophole says that we can do so. I think that's pretty yucky. I don't have a better word for it right now. So I'm just stating my initial thought of the general process of us possibly even being able to do that. So thank you.
So at this point, I'll just say, if you have questions, comments, concerns, please send them to Manager Parrillo. I will say, I just would like the council to consider going into this with an open mind, ask questions, get all of the information. Specifically in my district, the unhoused population is a big issue. I get calls from residents who have property abutting our bike path because that's where they stay along. I've had residents who abut the Whipple Conservation Area with concerns about fires in the woods over there and fires being unattended. And same thing in the commercial district on Tioga Ave. There are people who are staying behind businesses. I have people reaching out to me about places for them to go as well. So I understand the safety concerns, I understand the cost concerns, but I, would just like everybody to send your questions and your considerations, and let's get all the information first, just to at least say that we're making an effort for this issue.
I agree.
Any further discussion? All right. With that, we'll move to public comment for undocketed items. That are members of the public who would like to make a public comment on items that weren't on our docket this evening. Any members on Zoom, raise your hand. Public comment on undocketed items. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn at 9:18 p.m.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. All those in favor say aye. The chair votes